What's up guys, how's it going? Today is like the 1 year anniversary of me getting this bike. This is the Canyon Grizl CF SL in the 2x configuration. In this video I'm gonna be talking about the following things. So first of all, why the Grizl? Second of all, 2x versus 1x. As you can see, this is in the 2x configuration. We're gonna talk about that. We're also gonna talk about geometry and comfort of the bike. The use cases, I mean, this is a gravel bike, but as you know, gravel bikes are very versatile, so you can also go on road with them. I will then walk you through the bike and just see how it has held up after a year of cycling. If you're interested in anything in particular, just look at the timestamps and you can just jump right into whatever interests you the most. At the very end of the video, I'm gonna wrap it up, give you my advice if I were on the market again for a gravel bike or for my first ever proper bike. First of all, let's talk about the Grizl. The Grizl is one of two of Canyon's gravel bikes. The other one is the Grail. I bought this one last year, when there was like a huge issue with stock. There is still issue with stock on Canyon, but I think last year was even worse than now. So it has gotten better. I bought the Grizl instead of the Grail because at the time you didn't have like the typical handlebar of a bike with the Grail. You had like this hover bar. I didn't like it. I just wanted something a bit more simple and normal. So I went with the Grizl. I was also between aluminum and carbon. I went for carbon just because, like, knowing myself, I would have, if I had gone with the aluminum version of the Grizl or the aluminum version of the Grail at the time, I would have just regretted it after a bit of time. So I just went with carbon. With the GRX components that you can buy SRAM stuff as well. Another thing was that my idea of buying a gravel bike was that I just wanted one bike for everything. So I was between a gravel bike or a road bike, so I went for a gravel bike because of that. And my plan was to essentially have two pairs of wheel sets. So the gravel wheel set, as you can see, but also the road wheel set. So I just told myself that I would essentially just switch the wheels if I wanted to go road cycling. If you have been following me on my YouTube channel, you probably have seen the unboxing of the Endurace, which I shared with you a few weeks ago. So it turns out I actually just bought a road bike for road cycling. This was my first proper bike. And I had no idea about a lot of things about cycling. But after a year of proper cycling for the first time in my life, I just realized that I really like cycling. And I just went ahead and bought a proper road bike. I like both worlds. I like gravel and I also like road cycling. So I just told myself, just have a proper bike for each occasion. So we're gonna talk more about the geometry of the bike, but in theory you could just buy another wheel set and make it just a road bike, especially because this is the 2x configuration. But we're gonna talk about geometry and like tire width a bit later. I paid 3,000 francs for this bike a year ago. Not a cheap bike. I mean, a lot of people say, oh no, because of the components at the bike you're getting great, that it's actually cheap. Sure, I mean, I can see that if you look at other brands that are not direct to consumer, and even the ones that are direct to consumer, you usually pay at least 500 to 600 francs or dollars more for a similarly spec bike. So sure, it was cheap, but it was still expensive, at least for me, 3,000 francs. And also one thing, even though other bike brands are more expensive, I just like how Canyon bikes look. I like the design language that all their bikes follow. So yeah, I mean, it was cheaper, and also I think Canyon bikes look very cool. So the design was a huge aspect of my decision. Also, I mean, this is in the Earl Grey color. At the time, you could buy the CF SL in this color or in the Matcha Splash, so the distinctive color of the Grizl, which is like this teal color with some splashes here and here. I don't think you can buy neither of these colors anymore with this configuration. Maybe you can get the aluminum version in this Earl Grey, but yeah, I personally like discrete colors. So just gray on a gravel bike is super cool. for me, but this is just my personal preference. So yeah, now let's talk about the 2x versus 1x. As you can see, this is a Shimano GRX 800 2x configuration. At the time of purchase, so before I actually purchased this bike, I was like I thought a lot about like 1x versus 2x. And yeah, I was going insane essentially. Basically because again, this was my first proper bike, and before that, I mean, I was riding like a trekking bike. You know, like the trekking bikes, usually when on the handlebar you have the little arrows that tells you where you are in your gearing. Obviously with these type of bikes you don't, you just have to know. That's why I was more into 1x, and basically at the time of buying this bike, you couldn't buy GRX 800s 1x setup in the European market. My option was either to buy this one or go to the CF SL 7 version to get the SRAM with electronic components. I decided against it. At the beginning, when I was riding the bike, obviously, because this was my first proper bike, I did have a lot of issues with just knowing in which gear I was. And yeah, the first month I was like, man, I should have gotten the 1x as opposed to the 2x. But if you know my channel, or if you know where I live in Switzerland. Switzerland is a very hilly country, and actually 2x is much better. So after a few months of riding the bike, I actually realized that I was so lucky in a sense to actually have gone for the 2x, because yeah, I couldn't imagine having less gearing or less gears in this country, like going up or in the climbs. It's just, yeah, I'm so happy that I went with 2x. I also got used to riding a 2x bike. Learning curve is a bit steep at the beginning, but once you get used to it, you actually appreciate that you have a 2x bike as opposed to 1x, in my opinion. I see a lot of people with 1x gravel bikes and they seem to do just fine, especially now that you have the new 12-speed GRX, the 1x, so you have much more gearing than with the 11-speed. This is an 11-speed 2x. I also think they released the 2x, so the 12-speed 2x GRX, so you have even more gears than with this one. But I am super happy with this. I haven't had any issues. It's just my fitness basically that makes me go slower on the climbs. And also one huge advantage of going 2x with a gravel bike like this is that you can essentially convert it to a road bike, right? Because you have a 2x setup, you just go with thinner wheels or thinner tires, and you essentially have a road bike that is just maybe slightly heavier than the usual road bike. But yeah, that's one other advantage of just having a 2x gravel bike. If I were to do it again, having gotten used to a 2x bike and having ridden this bike for 3,000 kilometers already, I would go for a 2x bike again, gravel bike. So yeah, that's just regarding 1x and 2x. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not for everyone. I can see the appeal for a 1x bike, but in my opinion, this is much better. Also, one thing about the cranks, if you know, Canyon has been having a lot of supply issues with the GRX cranks. So a year ago in 2022, November 2022, if you were to buy a bike from Canyon, a gravel bike with the GRX components, there was a very high possibility of you getting Rotor cranks instead of the GRX cranks. I don't know why and how, but I actually ended up getting the GRX cranks as opposed to the Rotor cranks. When I bought the bike online, I thought, okay, I'm just gonna get the Rotor cranks. But yeah, they shipped with the GRX 800 cranks. If you know or have been following the issue with the Rotor cranks, in theory, they are on the same tier as the GRX 800. They're actually lighter, but also, I mean, if you look online, like there's so many people having problems with the Rotor cranks that, I mean, they just fall off when you're cycling. This is, as you know, super dangerous. Imagine like being out of the saddle and then just the pedals just fall off. Like you can get hurt very badly. And yeah, that was a huge issue and I was very concerned about it. But they came out, they gave me the bike with the GRX cranks and I never had any issues. If I had gotten the Rotor cranks, I probably would have just bought the GRX cranks and have them installed. If you're watching this video, you probably know this already. If you haven't, I recommend you to check it out because it appears to be a serious issue, and I think Canyon knows this because they are covering the repairs of the cranks falling off, so they obviously have been notified of it. Okay, so let's talk about geometry and comfort, and this was a huge issue, man. Like, if you're watching this video, you also probably did. Like, I watched 100 videos of like unboxing of the Grizl, the Grail, even like the Endurace, just to see how, like, if I was buying the right frame size. This was combined with the issue of stocks. Yeah, so basically I am 190 centimeters tall and with a 90 centimeter inseam, and I measured this like also like 20 times just to get it right. Super annoying, super frustrating, but I wanted to get the sizing right, as you probably would want to as well. That's my height. You know, if you know Canyon's PPS system or whatever it's called, you only need these two values so that they can make a recommendation of the frame size. Frame size is super complicated. I think they claim that they have narrowed it down to these two values, but it's actually much more complicated. This is a large frame. If you enter my values on Canyon's website, you will get recommended an extra large actually, but on the very low end of extra large. I went online, like probably you would as well, or you have already done it, and I just went on forums on Reddit, like just looking at the size, and like everyone who, or almost everyone who bought an extra large with my measurements ended up having to decrease the reach by decreasing the stem length. This frame size comes with a 90 millimeter stem length, also the extra large. My understanding was that I would have to even shorter the stem length, and usually gravel bikes with a 90 millimeter stem length are already on the, for this frame size, are already on the lower end of the stem length. I was like, okay, either I have to buy a lower stem length, or I have to buy with the extra large, or I have to buy the large with a longer stem. So what I did is I bought the large, and this at the beginning turned out to be in hindsight I'm happy with this size, but at the beginning I was super frustrated because, well, I got the bike and riding 10 minutes with it felt fine, but after riding like 1 or 2 hours, like it just felt uncomfortable and also a bit difficult to ride. But I don't think this was just because of the size. It was also because it was my first bike like this, a first proper bike with this handlebars, the drop bars, and I just wasn't used to how the bike would feel and how I would be positioned on the bike. So in hindsight, I wasn't really sure whether it was the frame or just me not getting used to it. So after like a month of trying, I even flipped the stem. As of now, you see like it has the stem is not flipped, but at the time, a year ago, I did flip the stem to get a bit more stack, and that helped with comfort, or at least with pain, but I was still not getting used to it. So, but this was also in winter, so I wasn't really going cycling a lot. What I did after like 2 or 3 months, I just decided to go for a bike fit. So I took the bike to a bike store. I was a bit scared because, you know, like if you buy a direct-to-consumer bike like this, usually bike stores don't want to fix it or work with it. I was lucky enough that the bike shop here was just super open-minded and friendly. So yeah, I got bike fitted, and man, although it was really expensive, because if you have been to Switzerland, if you're from Switzerland, you know, like services here are super expensive. But basically what the bike fitter did is he adjusted my the clips on my shoes, or like the cleats, I don't know how they're called. He also adjusted the saddle height. He offered me a stem with even more rise. The problem wasn't the reach. The reach was actually perfect, but it was the stack. It was a bit too aggressive for me. So what he did is he bought a stem. You know, like you can flip, this is the original Canyon stem right now. It's the 90 millimeter. You can actually flip it so you get a bit more stack. But he bought a stem, or he gave me a stem with even more stack height. So yeah, I mean, if you have seen bikes like this with a flip stem, you know, like they look awful. But I was like, okay, man, like anything for comfort at this point. So I went with it. What he also did is he offered me a new handlebar. So as you can see, this is not the original handlebar. This handlebar has a little bit of a rise here. Just imagine like this bike with like the flip stem that is flipped. And yeah, I mean, in terms of stack, yeah, we did gain much more stack at the time. So we did the bike fit, like he told me, okay, this is the best we can do with this frame. He told me like, this is your right frame size. It's just that the stack is a bit too low for you. But I also wasn't, I mean, this was after winter of last year. So I was not really that as fit as I am now. I mean, I don't consider myself super fit, but I also don't consider myself unfit. Yeah, I went for a ride after the bike fit with the flip stem. And I mean, it felt comfortable, but also it felt a bit too upright. That's when I kind of like knew that I shouldn't feel like that on a bike like this. So yeah, I rode the bike for with that setup for like 2 or 3 months, and yeah, I never had any pain, but I also felt like I was way too upright. So what I did is actually I kept the handlebar, but I went back to the original stem from Canyon, the 90mm stem, and I'm gonna show you later like the whole setup again with the close-ups. The stack is a bit higher than usual, like if you would buy this bike again from Canyon. But after having ridden the bike for a year, after having gotten used to the geometry, getting used to the 2x, knowing in which gear I was, I would say that this setup right now for me is like the most comfortable setup I've ever been in. I could not imagine like having the extra large right now, like because this bike feels big. It's just, I wasn't used to it at the beginning. My advice regarding the frame size is you can do 3 things basically. The first thing is you just you do a pre-bike fit. So before you buy a bike from Canyon, just go to a local bike store and do a pre-fit with them. They will be able to tell you which frame size should work for you. That's option number 1. Option number 2, and this is a very expensive option, is that if you are between sizes like I was, you buy both bikes. So if I could have bought the large and also the extra large, assuming that they're stock, and just try the bike. I mean, Canyon's return policy is really good. I can tell you this from experience. After I bought this bike, I bought like 2 more bikes from Canyon that I ended up returning. No problems at all, even though I had ridden them, even though it was a bit dirty just because of usage on the road. I received my money back. I also bought a lot of accessories from Canyon and ended up returning them for XYZ reason, and I always got my money back. So this is the European market. I've heard stories from like the US market where Canyon's customer support is not as great, but yeah, in terms of return policy, I mean, fantastic, like no complaints. And I feel like they kind of have to be very good at this because this is a direct-to-consumer brand and it's just part of their business model. So that's option number 2. If you can afford it, just buy both bikes and return them when you can. And the third option is just do it like me and just go for one frame size and hope for the best. For me, I mean, in hindsight, this frame size gave me a lot of headaches. I was lucky enough that I could make it work in the end, but it could have easily been the case of me just ending up with the wrong frame size. Again, if I were to get a Grizl again, I would definitely get large. Let's talk about use cases now. So when I bought the Grizl, one of the aspects for me was to buy a bike that could essentially do it all. I mean, gravel and also road. If you look at the geometry of the Grizl, actually it's quite a sporty position on the Grizl. So it's not your typical gravel bike that is a bit more relaxed and comfortable. I mean, for me it is comfortable, but at the beginning it did take some time to get used to the position, especially on the longer ride, like 3-4 hour rides or even more. But this was important for me for one reason, because I wanted to essentially buy 2 wheel sets, like I said earlier, to make it essentially a road bike. Again, the geometry, as I said, it could easily be a road bike. The frame, maybe it's a bit heavier than your typical road bike, but it's a 2x setup. So honestly, what you could just do is just get another set of wheels, a bit lighter with thinner tires, and you essentially have a road bike. I've done, I don't know, like 2,000 kilometers on gravel, no problems with it, super stable, never fell off the bike for whatever reason. I mean, at one point I was really going pretty much mountain biking or even beyond mountain biking on this bike, and I had some close calls, but I never fell off the bike. I've also done road cycling with the bike like this, so no thinner tires, no lighter wheel sets. I just went road cycling with some friends, and some of them had like the Ultimate or like some other bikes from other brands, road bikes, proper road bikes, not endurance road bikes, which are also road bikes, but like race bikes, that's what I mean. Yeah, I mean, I could keep up with them, but I also felt, or it was very clear that I was needing much more power just to keep up with them. And I think it's just for two components of the bike. The wheels are much heavier because these are gravel wheel sets, and also the tire width. These are the stock tire widths from Canyon, like the 45 millimeters. Yeah, I mean 45 millimeters against like 28 or like 26. Yeah, I mean, I felt like the wheels were like really slowing me down, especially on the flats. I was able to like follow or keep up with people on road tires and road bikes, but I felt like if I had just proper road tires, like the difference would have been non-existent essentially. Even though like the bike is a bit heavier, it's still an aerodynamic position on the handlebars, on the drops. So really, I mean, if I really just wanted to narrow it down for one bike, it would be the Grizl with just two wheel sets in the 2x setup. 1x, we talked about 1x. I think the argument for 1x is much weaker on if you want to do road cycling. So now let's talk about like build quality. I mean, the painting is just beautiful. It has held up very well. There are 2 or 3 minor touches that I'm going to show you in a bit on the painting, but I mean, it's just a gorgeous bike. I think it looks great. I love the Earl Grey color. Yeah, I mean, what else? The Shimano components are top notch. Nothing against that. So super happy with it. The bike looks brand new essentially, with besides the minor touches I'm gonna show you. So again, this is the Canyon Grizl in size large. I'm sorry, I'm filming this at night, so maybe the lighting is not good. I installed a chain catcher on the bike just because I just wanted to feel a bit more safe with the chain drops, and I actually did have chain drops before. So as you can see, there's some details here. Here, I don't know if you can see, but I also touched the frame with my cycling shoes, and it left like a little detail there, but it was quite a strong touch, so that's why it left a mark. The Shimano components held up very well, no complaints really, besides the chain drops, but I think that was because the shifters were a bit out of tune, and yeah. But now I have the chain catcher, so I feel much safer when riding. The bottle cages are all from Canyon as well, the carbon frame. They're a bit expensive, but super light and durable. We also have the, I don't know how they're called, but this split post, seat post, and I have had issues with the seat post in a sense that it creaks a lot. I cleaned the seat post, put a lot of carbon paste twice, and it still has the creaking noise. So, but I haven't taken it to the bike shop for this issue yet, so maybe the guy at the bike shop can help me. But yeah, I have been having issues with the creaking seat post, and I know a lot of people on the internet have as well. This is the Canyon top tooth storage. It's not that big, look at my hand, but you can fit in some stuff there, but I thought it would have been much bigger, maybe like, I don't know, like to here. But yeah, the wear of the tires, again, it has like 2,000 kilometers on gravel and 1,000 on road, and I think it looks fine. This is the front. Again, apologies for the light, but yeah. Like I said earlier, I went back to the stock stem length, 90 millimeters. This is for 60 millimeter wide handlebar. Another detail of the bike is this scratch. This is not because of a fall or an accident. I actually never fell off the bike, but it just came like this when I bought it, and I never made a complaint to Canyon. Maybe I should have, but yeah, too late for that now. All right, so just to wrap it up, in conclusion, after like 3,000 kilometers on the bike, on gravel, on road, so 2,000 on gravel, 1,000 on road, I think this is a fantastic gravel bike. It can be the one bike for everything. In a two bike configuration, just get another pair of wheels and you essentially have a road bike that is just maybe a bit heavier, but geometry is fine for road cycling. So yeah, in terms of gravel, I mean, it's really one of the best gravels out there. At least that was my judgment when I wanted to buy a gravel bike. Super stable, super comfortable. Just get the right size. There are options there. Again, Canyon's return policy is amazing. So if you have any questions about the bike, please leave them in the comment section down below. If you feel like I can help you with something with your purchasing decision, just leave a comment. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.